Welcome to episode 55 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Assignment, Earth.
In this week's episode, the Enterprise is busy chilling in the 20th century for no apparent reason, when they intercept the arrival of a powerful visitor who claims his intentions are to help Earth through a potential crisis. Not knowing how his actions will affect their history, Kirk must make a difficult call. Will he allow the man to alter the course of history, or prevent him and put the future at risk?
And you're safe, my little green friend. Same to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. How are you, my little green friend?
I'm not too bad. I'm not particularly green though. Yourself?
On occasion.
It's been known.
Has been.
Last episode of the season.
It is, and I think it's only fair we should let people know we'll be taking a short break before we proceed with the third and finals.
Not too short a break.
What do you think? A month?
No more than a month, but...
You see, yeah, the reason is, what we normally do is, before we start a podcast run, as we've done about 8 times prior to this, we have a bank in place to allow for sickness and holidays, etc. But because of the pandemic, those have all been used up. So we need to restore our tranquility.
So by the time you hear this, we've probably had most of our break.
Yeah, that's the way to look at it.
Yeah. And we'll be back in the next few weeks.
We've got a few things coming up. Oh, I've got some snooker chat.
It'll be finished by the time people hear this.
Well, when will this one go out? I've managed to get myself a ticket to the final session at the Crucible. First time, looking forward to it.
It's probably a week ago now. How was it?
Brilliant.
You enjoyed it?
Yeah, apart from catching COVID.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. Yeah. It's a shame that all those people died, really.
Well, that's the price you have to pay for a good bit of sporting entertainment.
Well, we need to do these guinea pig projects to find out.
Yeah. The average age of a snooker fan.
Exactly. It was to be expected, really. What did they think?
Anyway, I'm sure the listeners love the snooker chat. They do.
Oh, we've had more feedback on that than we have on the Star Trek stuff.
Even a request to do a snooker podcast.
I'm sure that would get a good half dozen listeners. Did you enjoy this episode, the wrap-up finale?
I did, because I like ones that are set in the Earth in the present day rather than...
Well, I thought that the whole tone was quite different in this episode.
It was very different, yeah. There was certainly, we can talk about it, there was a sort of 60s vibe to this. Definitely.
The closest one I can think of was the Tomorrow is Yesterday when they're on the airbase in season 1.
Yeah.
It was enjoyable though.
I thought it was great fun, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how strong it was overall as an episode,
I thought it was quite strong.
Do you think so, yeah?
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit lightweight.
Did you?
Yeah. I'm not sure if the story... I don't know. I'm not sure if there was much substance to it.
They didn't get many answers to the questions that they brought up.
No.
Who is this guy? Don't know.
Exactly.
Is he good or bad? Don't know.
That's what I felt. You never really got to the essence, the core of what was going on.
Yeah.
But it was still fun. I did enjoy it.
Sure.
Lots to recommend. How do you think, again, is this an episode that's known as a classic or middling?
I mean, the character's well remembered, I think.
7. 11's dad from Stranger Things.
Something like that, yeah. Before we get into the episode, should I do my social media catch-up?
Why not? It's always better that way, because at the end you don't have to listen to you.
Yeah, you can just enjoy the theme tune. Yeah. Okay, at Trek Podcast on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter if you want to catch up with us during the week. StarTrekPodcast.com to find a post up for each episode where you can leave your thoughts, reminiscences, or just argue with the people who hang out there. And YouTube, if you prefer that medium, episodes go up there just as soon as they get past the copyright SARS.
Okay.
Shall we get into this one?
Let's crack on.
Very unusual opening.
A captain's log.
Yeah. And they talk about this light speed. Before we get into this is crap.
I've got mumbo jumbo, first note.
Every other time they travel through time, they are upset about it. They're panicking. They want to get back. Can they get back? Is it possible? This time, we just scooted back to 1968.
Yeah.
Using the light speed breakaway factor that we've never mentioned before.
Didn't even bother noting that yet. I just said mumbo jumbo.
Anyway, yes, it's 1968. They're researching historical things on Earth to see what's going on.
The Enterprise has apparently moved back in time to the 20th century.
They would be spotted.
They would be, yeah. They're orbiting around the planet, unobserved, on a historical mission to discover how we overcame desperate problems in 1968.
Conveniently, the year it was filmed.
Yeah, and not the 40s or the the 10s where there was, fairly significant desperate problems.
Yeah. I mean, there's problems in America in 68, but not
Well,
really
civil
the rest of the world.
unrest and things, but you wouldn't call it, threatening to the planet.
Well, the Cold War, I suppose. Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
But that was earlier. That was Kennedy.
It was Kennedy, yeah.
Anyhow.
I should also say, apologies up front, there may well be a smattering of pussy jokes in this episode.
I don't understand.
I didn't think you would.
No, it's not really my
Scene.
area of comedy.
Alright, okay. Anyway.
The ship
On the
starts
bridge.
shuggling about.
Yeah, it's violently jolted. And from the transporter room, Spock explains that they have accidentally intercepted a powerful transporter beam.
Oops.
Yeah, you don't like doing that.
It's a shame.
It's always an embarrassment.
Yeah. Kirk is sceptical of this.
Yeah, he says it's impossible, that technology didn't exist at that point.
Spock's quite adamant about it, though.
Especially when they discover that someone is beaming on board.
Yeah, so Kirk heads down and we join him in the transporter room.
He arrives to hear Spock tell Scotty that the source of the beam is at least 1,000 light years away, which shocks him, as even in their time, this would be far too far away.
Yeah, and as Kirk comes in, Scotty advises him that the circuits are locked open, and then we get a different teleportation or transportation visual from the normal one.
Do we?
Yeah, something with this kind of like flames or something going on here, and something beams in. It's a man
Yes, in a suit, clutching his pussy.
holding a black cat.
I did tell you, I warned you.
That's the last of that.
That's the
again.
first off.
We get into the credits.
Then back to the transporter room. There is a foreboding score as the man and his pussy steps down and asks why he was intercepted.
Yes, and as he does so, we see the actor's name on screen for the first and only time in the series as a guest star. We don't see the guest stars normally listed in the opening credits.
Do we not?
No, I mean, it was normal for Columbo, I think, and various other series, but not for this one.
It's an odd time. Or I suppose maybe it's the correct time to be trying something different before.
Well, there's a reason for it. We'll get to that.
Ah, okay.
Kirk immediately calls for security, and in a sort of reversal of the normal questioning process, is asked by this man to identify himself.
Yeah, he then talks to his pussy, who he calls Isis, before he tosses it to the floor and asks which planet they're from.
Kirk says they're from Earth, but that is not the answer the man was expecting.
Why not?
Earth doesn't have spaceships in this period, or at least not of this level of technology.
Indeed, but he sees Spock and realises with a start that Vulcans and humans together must mean that they are in the future. He puts all that very quickly together.
Or at least they're from the future.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite challenging, isn't it?
He then demands to be beamed back down as security enter with phasers and stun, and so he decides to give them an explanation.
Captain Kirk, my name is Gerry 7. I am a human being from the 20th century. I was on my way...
Humans of the 20th century do not go beaming around the galaxy, Mr. 7.
I've been living on another planet far more advanced. I was beaming to Earth when you intercepted me.
The location of that planet?
I wish their existence kept secret. Even in your time, it will remain unknown.
It's impossible to hide a whole planet.
It's impossible for you, not for them. Captain Kirk, I am of this time period. You are not. You interfere with me, with what I have to do down there. And you'll change history. You'll destroy the Earth, and probably yourselves too.
If what he says is true, Captain, every second we delay him could be dangerous.
And if he's lying?
This is the most critical period in Earth's history. The planet I'm from wants to help Earth survive.
What if it turns out you're an invading alien from the future?
A most difficult decision, Captain.
Can't beam you down without further proof, one way or the other. Security confinement. This way, please.
Kirk now contacts McCoy, but before he can get into a conversation, this man, 7, fights off the security detail and is unaffected by an attempted nerve pinch by Spock.
However, he is stunned by Kirk eventually. McCoy is then told via comms to check on the prisoner who is being held and to provide a very fast analysis to determine whether or not he is human.
As he claims.
We then have a supplemental log.
Yeah, I think it's just a recap.
Yeah, Kirk is confused as to who and what 7 is and accepts that without their weapons, all 5 of them were being overpowered.
Indeed. In the briefing room, like a Bond villain, Spock is stroking Isis, his cat.
Come on, let me do it.
Spock is stroking
His pussy.
7's cat and calls it a lovely animal, saying he is strangely drawn to it.
Yeah, as Kirk puts out a communication asking for all science, engineering and supervisory crew to lock into the briefing room as their next decision will have great importance to them and the future of Earth. Is this the first time we've seen or heard of the capabilities of everyone else locking into the briefing room?
I don't know. I think he just means for them to get on the video chat and tell us what's going on.
Okay.
Chekhov reports that the analysis of the transporter beam showed no planets in the source location, but Spock does counter that with Seven's claim that the planet was hidden.
Scotty is next up, but has nothing. Before Spock, with historical reports, shows that there is a lot of conflict going on that day on Earth, including assassinations, coups, and the launch of an orbital nuclear warhead platform by the US, which is countering other similar launches.
It's a bit jarring the way they use other powers. It's a couple of times they do that. We'll overlook it.
Yeah.
We'll come back to Spock's claims in the trivia later on.
Okay. He also confirms that orbiting H-bombs were one of the era's greatest issues, as even a small mistake could have caused a nuclear holocaust. Yeah, well, that's always a risk with that sort of thing.
That's the way it goes. In his office, McCoy hears from Kirk over comms, who wants him up to the briefing room ASAP with this report he was told to do quickly.
Yeah, but down in the cell. And it's the type of cell we've seen before. It's got a force field round the door.
Yes.
A red shirt stands guard over Seven. However, he pulls out a pen weapon.
Yep, another James Bondy type thing.
Very much so. There was definitely a James Bond feel to this, and I think that if we consider the fact that this was filmed in 69?
68.
68. It was the peak of Bond, wasn't it? After the classics, so very much the forefront of people's minds, I would have thought.
Yeah, Pussy Galore, Octopussy, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Just to fit in with your theme.
What theme is that?
Oh, who knows. The pen device shuts off the force field and is also able to prevent the guard from shooting Seven. Yeah,
and it's not just that he gets stunned. We see it later on as well. This pen, it stuns him, knocks him out, or incapacitates him, but it seems quite pleasurable. They've got a smile on their face and they slump down as if they've been doped up.
Yeah.
I'd quite like a little shot of that pen. Looks good. Although I imagine it'd be highly addictive.
And he gets set to kill later on, so you need to be careful.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously. I wonder if that's a metaphor for heroin.
Yeah, that's it. A little's okay. A little is enjoyable, but too much can kill you.
That's it.
That's why I teach the kids.
I didn't even know you were from Edinburgh.
Oh.
Anyhow, the briefing room.
Yes. McCoy enters and tells Kirk that Seven's readings are good. They're too good.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing that he said in Return to Tomorrow with the aliens from the next galaxy over, but he doesn't reference that at all.
No. He says that, Seven's got effectively a perfect body. Kirk must be raging. Yeah. Oh, what do you mean he's got a perfect body?
That's a perfect body. You haven't seen it. He takes his shirt off. Spock sees both sides of this. It could be that he is a perfect human who's been living on another world, or it could be that he's an alien pretending to be a human. That's annoying for Kirk. Not only is a perfect human, also it's not helping him make a decision.
We then have a security alert warning that the prisoner has escaped, and Uhura, she points out that someone is preparing to beam down.
And the cat escapes from Spock at this point and runs off. Kirk tells Uhura to try and shut the transporters off.
Yeah, as he runs down there, so that's where we go. We see a couple of unconscious, grinning again, red shirts lying on the floor as Seven works the controls before he's joined by his pussy. Well, I keep doing this.
No, I think you shouldn't. People are probably just skipping it every time.
Although ISIS is these days probably more offensive.
Indeed. Just as Kirk, McCoy and Spock dash into the room, we see Seven and the cat beam away.
Yep, nothing worse than a bit of pussy disappearing.
No. Down in what appears to be some kind of apartment.
Yeah,
on Earth.
I thought it was an office at first, and then at the very end, Kirk mentions it's an apartment and I have to do a find and replace.
All the word mentions of office.
The apartment, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it looks like it's in New York.
Yeah, somewhere like that.
Certainly a metropolitan.
It might be Miami or something like that if they're near the space shop, but they don't have to be near the space.
No, it wasn't Miami. No chance.
Okay.
It wasn't.
Okay, whatever. LA.
No, it was New York.
Okay. Anyhow, we get this display case full of glasses splitting in two, revealing a massive safe door. The wheel on it turns, the door opens, and there's Gary with his cat.
I like this. It was the swirling blue smoke, and that closes behind him. Was it mind controlled then? Is he using something?
I don't think it's closed. I think it's programmed to close itself.
After what? Is it on
sensors?
After you
come out of it, yeah.
Yeah, but it'd have to be a sensor then, rather than a time. limit? Because what if you dawdled?
It just knows that he's out. It's very smart.
That's what I'm saying, a sensor.
Yeah, very futuristic sensor. 7, he goes to the window, looks down onto the street and says it's terrible.
It's a very 60s street, isn't it? I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
A time capsule here of...
Life in 1968.
Yeah.
He calls it primitive, but tells the cat not to worry. They won't have to live there for very long.
He then turns a bookcase into a computer and a wonderful... So it's a great set design, this. It's, again, very 60s. And asks it to provide the locations of Agents 210 and 347.
Unfortunately, the computer's got an attitude and won't deal with him.
Yeah, there's it's got a female voice, asks him to ID himself. And he wearily tells her, look, just use my voice. You'll find out that I'm Supervisor 194 with codename Gary 7.
It says, no, you're not meant to work in here.
Yeah, it says that his voice matches, but there is no listing for a Gary 7 assigned to the planet. And so he pulls rank and orders it to answer his questions.
It still says no. It says, prove you are who you say you are by detailing the mission on Earth.
And after remarking on some Beta 5 snobbery, he agrees to the request. There are male and female agents from ancestors that were taken from Earth 6,000 years ago, and there have been generations of training on them for this mission.
That's going to upset the new Earthers.
Yeah. What's the problem, however?
Earth technology and science has progressed faster than their ability to handle it with politics and social knowledge.
I think that's actually quite relevant today, in the forthcoming 5 to 10 years. I think I think a lot of people don't appreciate. I think the rate of change in terms of AI and what's going to happen in the next decade is going to supersede what our infrastructure is capable of. I think there's going to be massive upheaval.
I mean, you already see it with the fact the legal system's not designed to cope with literally anything online.
Yeah.
And it struggles.
Yeah.
And they try to apply old laws to new technologies and it's not appropriate.
Without a doubt. But I think that's only the tip of it. I mean, I think jobs is the big thing. I think we're going to find ourselves in a situation where there's not going to be a massive amount of need for human capabilities.
Certainly not working class level jobs where you have like the machinery that can create things, the making of things, where you would have the means of production, as it were.
Sure, but I think it's even more than that, honestly, and I think that the change we're about to experience, because even jobs, there are now, you talked about the legal system, there will be very, very shortly, there will be AI which will be able to do a lot of the legal work in terms of interpreting, scanning information and come up with the results. I think there are a lot. There's even things that you think might be not be affected as much, like the creative industries. I was reading about someone who used a computer, an AI, a computer put together a piece of music, which was then presented to a composer, and it was given two options. It was given two pieces of music and asked to identify which one was man-made and which one wasn't, and you couldn't tell a difference. Things like that it's going to be a scary time.
Well, for some people.
I think for a lot of us. Not to be a doommonger, it's not a doommonger, but the change in this next period is going to be more than we've ever seen before.
Well, time will tell.
It certainly will. Anyway, apart from that.
Okay, now that you all know you're going to be unemployed shortly, we'll move on. The computer says that Gary's explanation is incomplete, but it'll do. It informs him, however, that the agents have been missing for the last 3 days.
So Sivan tells it to begin searching immediately for them and starts to explain what this entails, which irks the computer, who doesn't need his instruction.
Yeah, it knows what to do.
Back to the transporter room.
Yeah, this is weird. Scotty says that they can estimate his position to within a 1 kilometre radius, but if other people beam down, they can find out exactly where he is.
Yeah. What?
Just convenient techno
babble
conditions. Yeah. Anyhow, on the bright side, Spock and Kirk are beaming down, but at least on this occasion they decide to change into appropriate clothes.
And there also is another warning of the danger of changing history.
Yes, Spock gives that to Kirk.
Back to Sivan's apartment. We hear the computer tell Sivan that the suborbital warhead is being launched by the US that day in response to these other countries doing the same, in order to maintain a balance of power.
Sivan notes that this kind of thing caused lots of problems on Omicron 4.
Yeah, he points out it's nonsense. And we've had this discussion before. We've had episodes which have addressed the same dilemma or the same potential strategy.
We've still got this. People still have nuclear weapons for no good reason.
Not even nuclear weapons. I don't want to get too political here, but even if you look at gun law in America, we were discussing this the other day, and I mean, you've got people saying that, I need to have a gun to protect myself from people who have guns. And it's like, well, it's not all. You don't need guns.
A gun doesn't really protect you from a gun.
But listen, there's no point. I'm sure we've all heard this one before.
Yeah. I mean, all you have to do is look at wars with guns. People get shot. Mostly had guns.
Yeah.
Didn't help them.
No.
Anyway, the computer agrees with Gary's assessment of the Omicron 4 situation and reports on what the other agents were intending to do here.
Yeah, they were going to try and set a malfunction on the US rockets, but this as yet has not been achieved.
Yeah, 7 notes he will need to pick up their mission if they're not found soon.
But there's only 1 hour and 27 minutes to launch, so...
When are they going to find them?
Better get thinking
The
out.
next 5 minutes, maybe. Kirk and Spock beam down in the street outside, and Scotty guides them towards Gary's apartment.
They're looking rather dapper, I thought, in their
A nice
their
new
suits.
hat for Spock.
Yeah, well, it's a Russian-style hat.
Yes.
Or I think it is. Always assumed it was. Different colour, mind you, but those sort of thick woolen type, or the fur, hats.
Certainly from a cold climate.
My grandfather used to always remember as a kid he had one of those.
Is he Russian?
No, he was quite ponderous. Anyway,
in the apartment, Gary's printing out some fake ID.
was that what he was doing, yeah?
Yeah, he got various different ones, a CIA one, a NYPD one, and an NSA one.
Oh, no, but before that, we should mention that we see a kooky, sexy style woman enter the building.
Okay.
And as you rightly say, yes, we see this identification being forged.
Along with a map of the McKinley rocket base.
So this woman, who we learn is Roberta,
She's quite pleased.
yeah, she skips in talking to herself.
She's late, but no one else is there, so they'll never know.
However, she is surprised when Seven walks through and asks her where she's been for the past 3 days.
Yes, he assumes that she is one of the agents.
Of course. Now, I thought perhaps she was, and this was her act. I've not watched this.
No, it's possible. But
Yes, I've noted here she tries to play all innocent and throws out a few code words to test who he is.
no, that's not what she's doing.
No.
It's a completely discombobulated conversation where neither one of them knows what the other one's talking about.
Yeah. He demands a report of what she has been up to. So, what does she do?
Well, first of all, she gets upset at this suggestion, but then when he pulls out a typewriter, she tries to type on it.
But she is astonished to find that she doesn't have to use her fingers or her nose.
No, it's voice controlled, and this really throws her for a loop.
It's quite quaint, isn't it? They've got the technology to be voice controlled, but it still has to control a mechanical, old-fashioned typewriter.
Yeah. She tries to quit at this point and gets up from the typewriter.
Yes, which I suppose causes him to question whether she is really acting or does no more than she's letting on. And as she goes to leave, he has to use his pen to firstly lock the door before he asks the computer to identify her.
Roberta Lincoln, human, profession, secretary, employed by 347 and 201. Description, age 20, 5 feet 7 inches, 120 pounds, hair presently tinted honey blonde, although behavior appears erratic, possesses high IQ, birthmarks, small mole on left shoulder, somewhat larger star-shaped mark on her...
Watch it. Okay, I'll bite. What is it?
Miss Lincoln. Miss Lincoln, what kind of work did your employers say they were doing here?
Research for a new encyclopedia? No?
All right, you can go. Of course, if you do, you won't be helping your country. Unless you don't care about that.
Sure, I care. What do you think I am?
I don't know, Miss Lincoln, what you are, not yet. All I know is that my incompetence has made you aware of some very secret devices that are vital to the security of this nation.
Well, what are you guys around here anyway? FBI? Or some kind of government agents, huh?
Right at the end there, you heard the cat coming in, and Roberta's quite surprised as Seven talks to it, and he has to explain to her it's a trained cat.
She also thinks his CIA credentials are groovy.
Yes. He then retreats back through to the other room and tells her not to let anyone through.
Do you think she'd a touch of the Scooby-Doo about her, the Daphne?
Daphne, yeah. Outside on the street, Scotty is able to confirm to Kirk that the signal from Gary's location is at a higher altitude than his, so turns out he's not on the ground floor.
Inside the apartment, Seven is listening to the computer and finds out that the agents were killed in a car crash near to the rocket base.
Yeah, he thinks that's a bit of a waste.
It's also, I'm not sure if this is a nod to, there's some sort of conspiracy theories surrounding the space program. Okay. And there were astronauts who were involved in unsuccessful. One of the ones that, there was a problem on the ground before the Apollo mission.
Yep.
And then they died, some of them died. One died in a car crash nearby as well. And there was always theories that perhaps that he was bumped off because he was going to blow the whistle on something or other.
Yeah, they could maybe have left a wee thread here, whether this was really a car crash or if they'd been discovered. But no, they don't. Just leave it here and never mention it again. Scotty leads Kirk and Spock over comms to Gary's door, and Kirk rings the bell, which causes Gary to turn his computer off and hide it in the bookcase as Roberta goes to open the door. Yeah,
they barge in. She tries to prevent them and is forced to call the police. So Kirk grabs her and holds her before...
Holds is one word. I would say molests.
Really? Okay. Before passing her screaming to Spock. I was going to say, why not just pinch her out?
Well, because they want to grab hold of her and feel her up.
Or they want to find out information.
Maybe.
Which leads me to another question then. How long does the nerve pinch last for? Can he do it for like 1 minute or give a real hard one?
I think it just depends on the person that you're pinching.
Does it?
I'm only guessing.
Okay. Because in this case, you could pinch her out for 5 minutes just to calm her down.
Revive her.
And then revive her and say, right, we need this information.
While this is going on, Gary's activating his transporter safe.
And we should say also, whilst Spock's holding her, she throws her arms back, revealing his ears, knocks his hat off.
Yes. Kirk's aggressively questioning her and asking for Gary, wanting to know where he is. And it's quite an uncomfortable scene for me, I think.
Yeah. Although, what I would say is that if you've got an hour and 20 minutes to save the Earth, it's probably justified.
Yeah, they manhandle her and they're quite rough with her without taking her... And like, she's basically disregarded. She's not considered a person whose feelings are...
To save the entire planet, I don't really have an issue with that.
But they don't know what she knows. She could be important.
Yeah, sure.
Anyhow.
At the same time, Seven is entering his big vault with his pussy, and by the time Kirk uses his phaser to enter that part of the apartment, they've transported through the blue smoke to the rocket base 60 minutes before launch.
Yes, it's sunny where they are.
Still in the apartment, Kirk has found the map of the base, but before he can get answers, who arrives in the scene?
The police.
They do.
Just before that though, before it cut back to the apartment, we saw a stock NASA shot of a rocket.
There's a lot of stock imagery, I'd imagine, in this episode.
Yeah.
It's quite nice, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, with the police outside the door, Roberta gets their attention by screaming and they break in. This causes Kirk to get on the phone to Scotty and tell him that they need a wide beam transport because they're going to be on the move.
Yeah, so he beams up the two cops.
Yeah, actually, I don't think deliberately, but yes, with Kirk and Spock, two policemen come. Kirk and Spock jump off the transporter pad and tell Scotty just to send them back. Let's not ask too many questions.
And that's going to talk about affecting history.
They're just going to be, people are going to think they were on drugs or something. Oh yeah, I saw two men in a spaceship. Yeah, of course you did, Phil. Death duty for you.
But they're definitely interfering here. What's the Prime Directive all about?
The Prime Directive doesn't apply to this.
Does it not?
No.
Why not?
Because it's humans. It's their civilization.
Okay.
Probably.
And but Spock's not human, so Spock's interfering with another.
It would be different anyway with temporal regulations.
Right.
Prime Directive only applies in their own time period, I think.
Anyway, they're returned back to an equally stunned Roberta.
Yeah, and then we jump across to launch control at the McKinley rocket base where we see, or we hear an announcement being made. It's 50 minutes to launch, all systems are clear, and they're needing the launch pad inspected.
Outside the control room, Seven is holding ISIS and is approached by a suspicious security guard who checks his ID but tells him to drop the cat and keep his hands at his side as he calls in to check. I wonder why. I mean, he doesn't look suspicious. He looks like he would belong.
He's holding a cat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit weird.
It might be a bit weird, but if you're thinking to yourself, if there's people here to do up to no good, did they bring a cat with them?
It could also be there's a really small number of people on site and he doesn't recognise them and he just wants to check into it.
Possible, but we've seen there's not a really small number of people. We see the shots of the control room and it's very busy.
He is also right next to the launch director's car. We see a little name badge in the window.
Yeah, it's just, I suppose it
could be a secure area.
It could be, but he It was the whole drop it and raise your hands and that. It was a bit more severe than...
He could also be a job's worth.
Could be, yeah, I think he is. Anyway, but as he makes his call, Isis distracts him, allowing Seven to freeze him into a grin, as we've discussed, with his pen, and then walk him over to a place where he sits him down.
We got a 45-minute countdown on the tannoy, and we then flip back to launch control where Cromwell, the guy whose name was on the car,
The launch director, yeah.
He says he's going to head over to the gantry and they should sound the alert.
Up in engineering, Scotty has the rocket on the screen, and whilst he can zoom in, he can't locate Seven as he would like in order to beam him up. This, I think Scotty has mentioned that he's getting these pictures from an Earth satellite.
Well, he's bouncing his signal off a weather balloon.
Right, but there's times in here where it's clearly just a camcorder level.
Yes.
You know, you can do all sorts with it.
I think it's the Enterprise's scanners that are doing this.
Yeah.
But he says if he does get a visual on Gary, he'll be able to beam him up.
Back to the rocket base. Over some more nice stock footage, we hear the control room prepare everyone for the upcoming launch by clearing all necessary areas, and we head off to the gantry.
Yep, Cromwell and a couple of military guys arrive in their cars at the base of the rocket, where Cromwell greets a guy called Jack Nesvig, and as we hear this 35-minute warning, he begins his final checks, and meanwhile, Gary and Isis get out the boot of his car.
The trunk.
Okay.
Cromwell returns and sends the elevator to the top of the structure to be locked before he leaves, and we see that Seven is riding it on the way up.
Sneaky.
Outside the control room.
Yes, the security guard who stopped Gary earlier on now stops Kirk and Spock because they've not been very careful about where they beam down. We've talked about this before. They choose terrible locations to beam down quite often.
Yeah, they're fools.
They've got all this technology. They can see this guy in pinpoint clarity on the rocket. It's like, oh, we'll just beam him down that general area somewhere.
The guard pulls his gun on them, telling them to freeze. And back to engineering, where we see Scotty still watching on the screen.
Yeah. So this security guard then contacts Cromwell asking if he wants to delay the countdown due to this breach of security.
And we head back to Seven's apartment, where Roberta is telling the computer to tell Seven that she is quitting, but promises to keep quiet. That's what we heard at the top of the podcast.
Yeah. As she sits at the desk, she knocks the fake pen over that operates the bookcase computer.
A terrible mechanism for that. You're asking for it to be found by someone else who just wants to use a pen.
Yes, it's ridiculous. We jump back to the rocket.
It's like...
Okay.
It's like making it out of toilet paper in the bathroom. No one will ever touch this.
Yes.
Or a light switch.
Yeah. Or a book.
Yeah.
It's the one red book on a shelf full of black book. Anyway, back at the rocket base, we see a crowd beginning to gather a few miles away, no social distancing in place. Quite uncomfortable to see.
Well, yeah, certainly. The launch is still going ahead. It's 20 minutes away as we see Seven at the top of the rocket and messing about with it with his pen.
Yes. 2 communicators and 2 phasers are now seen on the launch controller's table. Kirk and Spock have been captured, and Lipton, the security guard, his boss, is doing an interrogation.
You say interrogation. I thought this was nonsense. The guy basically says, listen, guys, tell us exactly why you're here and we'll go easy on you.
He's lying. They're not going to go easy. They're going to find out who they are and then put them in jail.
We hear that there is indeed no delay to the countdown as we cut to Seven still interfering with his pussy beside him.
Yeah, he says that, or he notes that the cat seems nervous and says he's doing his best.
Back to engineering, where Scotty has managed to get some fantastic angles, as I mentioned, and close-ups from a satellite image, and has spotted Seven at work. So he calls for 2 security men to be sent to him.
Yes, we hear the tannoy now at launch control saying there's 8 minutes to go, everything's proceeding, and in the apartment, Roberta starts fiddling around with the safe door, which now opens. Yeah,
she somehow managed to break in. Now, earlier on, we heard the computer just read off Roberta's file, and it says she appears quite dizzy, she's actually very intelligent.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that she ever really got to... I thought towards the end she would have a more heroic role. She would save
everything's
the day.
a bit accidental, isn't it?
Although at this point I was thinking, how would she have opened this vault door? But I suppose you're saying she's really... But even if you're really smart, it doesn't make you say you can easily open a vault.
Well, it's a fake vault.
Yeah, but you still
what she does here is she doesn't open it, she hits the control to beam him back.
Right.
And it opens to bring him in.
Okay.
At the same time as Scotty's trying to beam him up.
Okay, that makes
Or the
sense.
intercept button, because when he arrives back, she shows him what she did, and he says, you must have intercepted the Enterprise.
Yeah, okay.
So it must be she's hit the intercept button.
Up in engineering, security is there and Scotty locks on and starts to beam up Seven and ISIS, but he doesn't fully materialise as Roberta has pulled him back to the vault, which obviously shocks her.
Computer on. Lock into launch site scan.
1 minute to launch. Oh my gosh.
Captain's log supplemental. Spock and I in custody. Even if we talked, they wouldn't believe us. We're powerless to stop Mr. Seven or prevent the launch, or even be certain if we should. I have never felt so helpless.
30 seconds to launch. Look, hey, I mean, not even the CIA could do all this.
T-minus 20 seconds. Mark. Stage is reporting ready for launch. Automatic sequence is on. She's completely automatic now.
15 seconds to launch. 10 seconds.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It just occurred to me there. I mentioned James Bond earlier.
Yeah.
He is 007, isn't he? 7.
Yeah, 7 is, everyone else has got a 3-digit code name, so it must be a couple of zeros. No, does he not give a different number though? He gives 19 something to the computer when he first arrives.
True.
I think 7's just his name.
It's a weird name.
Well, it's one of Beckham's kids is called 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We hear the Tannoy following launch declare that the altitude is at 1,000 feet, all is well, all going as planned, and trajectory is normal. And back at the apartment, 7 asks the computer, can he take control because he wasn't finished what he was doing?
And as he does, a worried Roberta backs off and tries to use the phone. Now, who's she going to call at this point?
I think the police again.
It's not really within their...
There's a man intercepting the rocket from his magic computer.
We'll be there in half an hour.
She doesn't get a chance though because the cat draws Gary's attention to what she's up to and he blows up the phone line.
Yes, with his magic pen and tells her not to bother trying to leave as the doors are locked and no one can hear you scream or miles from anyone.
And he then tells the cat off for being jealous.
Yeah.
A bit weird.
And she's jealous later on as well, I think. Anyhow, he gets back to the computer and tells it to start the malfunction.
Which it does.
Indeed.
Down in launch control, Cromwell obviously troubled by this and demands urgent readings because they need to figure out what's wrong and what they can do about it.
We cut back to Roberta, who is even more worried now, understandably, and we see her reach for a metal box.
Yes, as 7 has the computer arm the nuclear warhead.
Up in the bridge, for a change.
Yep, Chekhov checks in with Scotty, tells him the rocket's armed itself and offers to use the phasers to destroy it.
Meanwhile, Ahura, with her new hair, did you spot that? It looked like a drastically different... I don't even know if it was a wig or not.
Oh, right, okay.
Different style hair.
Just looking fancy for the last episode.
Yeah.
She reports that people on Earth are beginning to sound worried.
Yeah, a bit panicky.
All the major powers have put out military alerts and Scotty decides the only thing to be done is to contact Kirk.
Yeah, he bottles it. He's in charge now and he's, I don't know what to do.
I can't help.
Down in the control room, as Kirk and Spock listen on to the plan to destroy it from Earth and land an H-bomb over somewhere, we see Kirk try to sneak a wee shot of the communicator.
Yeah. Nesev and Cromwell don't know how this could have happened, but they hope they might be able to destroy it because otherwise somebody's getting nuked.
As long as it's not them, eh?
Yeah, maybe it'll be one of those foreign countries.
Back to the apartment. It does appear that Roberta, as I had mentioned earlier, has come to the rescue.
Yeah, she hits Gary over the head with a cigar box or metal box, whatever it is, and tells him that he was lying about being in the CIA and she doesn't believe him.
Yeah, and she also does love her country. And we should say she's got his magic pen now.
Yes, so she's not as daft as she looks.
She doesn't look very daft. Maybe not as daft as she acts. She doesn't look daft. She looks 60s.
Yeah.
Goldie Hawn type.
Hippie.
Yeah. Maybe not. She's maybe not a hippie. She's maybe a hippie attitude. She's more just that...
Hippie adjunct.
Again, I would say the Goldie Hawn type.
Okay. Anyhow, she takes this pen and points it at him because she's not going to let him harm her country's phallic rocket.
I need to stop monkeying around. Good advice, that.
Yes, he says that he needs to finish what he started or World War III will break out.
Yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum she's got there.
And we already know from other episodes of Star Trek that in this history, World War III is not until the 90s.
Exactly. Back to the control room. They don't know what is going on as the warhead appears to be coming back down, and so Cromwell orders the signal to be put on maximum boost.
Yeah, why did they not try that before? we tried it at half, and nothing's happened, sir.
And to further confuse the matter, the security guard hears Scotty explain what has happened to Seven, and he tries to talk to him via the communicator.
Yes, but as he does so, Spock offers to assist, and Nick pinches him, allowing Kirk to get hold of this communicator.
And has Scotty beam them back to the apartment.
Just as we hear that the Max signal also hasn't worked, and Cromwell says, try again.
He also asks for the president to be contacted.
Well, he goes to the magic bat phone.
Yeah.
And he calls for the president, which would be Lyndon Johnson at this point.
Okay.
Nixon doesn't elect until November of 68.
Right, there you go.
And doesn't come into power till January of 69.
In the apartment, the computer wants instruction, but Seven is still trying to get Roberta to believe him. And she's got some sympathy, I think, and even admits that some of her friends are screwy and rebels who wonder if they'll make it alive to 30.
To Roberta's dismay, Kirk arrives and Spock takes over control of the computer.
But Kirk has to make a decision quickly. That's going to have severe consequences.
Spock, you're the expert. Can you detonate the warhead from this computer?
I can try, Captain.
Altitude 550 miles.
Captain, I want that warhead detonated too. Unless I do it, at least 100 miles above ground, just barely in time, frighten them out of this arms race.
Captain, monitors show all major powers on full missile alert. Retaliatory strike ordered on warhead impact.
Altitude 450 miles.
Spock.
I can estimate some of this, Captain, but without more time.
Captain, he can only guess. Will you please let me do my job?
I don't know what your job is. You may set those controls so we can't detonate that warhead.
Listen, you get away from him.
Roberta, be careful. Servo set to kill.
Altitude 400 miles.
They're only seconds. I'll need time to set it.
Please, he's telling the truth.
55 seconds to impact.
Spock, if you can't handle it, I'm going to have to trust him.
It is difficult to know which is best, Captain. Without facts, the decision cannot be made logically. You must rely on your human intuition.
Altitude 300 miles. Descending and accelerating.
Go.
30 seconds and
Computer, go to
accelerating.
visual.
So, what's persuaded Roberta that Gary isn't in fact a liar?
I don't know. It's like when you see a couple arguing in the street and you go over to maybe help her out if there's a guy who's been harassing her, like her partner, and then she turns on you, and the two of them turn on you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really...
It's like, whoa, don't get involved.
Yeah.
So he's
my problem.
Yeah.
I'll deal with him. You can't you can't slag off my football team. I'll call for the manager to be fired, but if you say anything, they're the best team in the world.
Exactly. Or like brothers who fight with each other, but...
He's my brother.
Yeah.
Anyhow, the computer counts down the distance 10 miles at a time, and Seven does detonate the warhead at 104 miles. A nuclear bomb going off 104 miles above...
Still got a bit of damage into it.
You would think, I mean, you're meant to detonate a nuclear bomb above the surface to get maximum spread.
Are you?
I believe so.
I'm no expert on it.
In my experience. Anyway.
Okay. A lot of experience, do you?
Well, anyway, I guess he's done the maths.
Yeah.
Move at 104 miles, there's just enough radiation half-life.
And I thought it would sort of fall back down on you anyway, a wider area.
Yeah, you're going to get this big mushroom cloud above you. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the idea. He was going to try and scare them out of nuclear weapons.
Looks like it, yeah.
Later on, Gary's dictating his report to the typewriter.
Yeah, as the others look on with smiles, but he is corrected by Spock when he states that the Enterprise interfered.
Yeah, Spock says that clearly it was always meant to play its part because this is how history worked out the first time.
And as he and Kirk rabbit on about what really happened, Roberta notices that Isis, the pussy, has transformed into a now more appealing feeling.
It's now a woman. Nobody says anything, and it's never mentioned again.
Weird. Really weird. And also, why is Roberta is now really jealous of this guy who sort of held her hostage and who she'd hit over the head recently?
Very convenient, isn't it?
Yeah, that was the 60s for you, wasn't it? A bit of violence, a bit of this, a bit of James Bond. Again, women loved it.
Yeah, you keep hitting them until they like it.
Of course, or kissing them.
Or whatever.
Yep.
Kirk notes that the record tapes show that, although not generally revealed, on this date a malfunctioning suborbital warhead was exploded 104 miles above Earth. And Spock reveals that this is going to lead to an international treaty against the use of such weapons.
Yeah, Kirk and Spock then refuse to give them any more information about what is in store for them.
Spock does enigmatically note that they have some interesting experiences in store for them. And
then advises them to live long and prosper. Now, is this we haven't heard this before, but when it was spoken here, I thought this is a catchphrase, isn't it? Live long and prosper, yeah.
Yes. I'm sure that he and his father used it in Journey to Babel, if not more than that. Maybe in Amok time as well.
Are you sure?
I'm not 100%. It's certainly a traditional Vulcan.
But at this point, it's not become a cliche yet, because it
wasn't in your head?
No.
Okay. But yes, this is what Vulcans say when they're Centurio.
Okay.
Yeah. LLAP.
Right. Before they both beam back up to the Enterprise.
Satisfying ending?
A little bit rushed.
At what point, if at all, were you convinced that Seven wasn't a bad guy?
Very start.
You thought he was a good guy from the beginning?
Yeah, I thought so.
Because of his suit?
Yeah.
Bad guys don't have nice suits.
No, he looked apart.
And the cat.
Yeah.
Bad guys they're not kind to animals.
Yeah, and I just think that if you were set to do bad, you can do bad at any time. Whereas if you're looking to stop something bad happening, you've got that one.
And the plot was very similar to Men in Black 3.
I don't think I've seen Men. I might have.
I think it's called Men in Black International.
Yeah.
It's with Chris Hemsworth.
I think I might have seen one of them. It's not really my thing.
Okay. Do you think that you could make a series with Roberta and Gerry in it?
I think you could, yeah. Are you going to tell me they were planning to?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was a backdoor pilot for a new series that Gene Roddenberry wanted to launch with Gary Seven and Roberta solving problems on Earth, but it never got picked up.
Yeah, okay, but without a doubt, you can see it. I mean, I thought they did have a decent chemistry.
This is why Spock's referring to these future adventures.
Right, okay, yes. That makes more sense now. No, definitely, I mean, if you look at around about that time, you've got I Spy with Robert Culp, He Who Must Not Be Named, Bill Cosby.
Oh, right, okay. He's just one of many.
Yeah, and Smart and all these other type of shows that you can see how this would
fit in with it.
Would fit in with it without a doubt, yeah.
Benevolent Aliens. Yeah. You don't get a lot of shows about that.
Mork and Mindy.
You get the Quester files that Roddenberry eventually made.
Okay.
Anyway.
And Third Rock from the Sun.
Are they benevolent? They're more kind of slapstick. William Shatner's in that, obviously. He's like
the head.
Big talking
big
head,
voice,
big floating head, or whatever he is, yeah. Some trivia.
Sure.
Or more trivia.
Yeah.
Originally aired date 22nd of March 1968. Last episode for 6 months. Maybe we should have a 6-month break. Let's not.
We never get started again.
No. Well, how long was the break we did? Never mind. Mark Daniels was the director, 13th of his 14 episodes, and his 14th will be the next episode that we do. Hear more about him back in the podcast for The Man Trap, episode 1. Art Wallace was the writer, second of his 2 writing credits on the show. Hear more about him back in the podcast for Obsession, the one with the cloud that loved the man too much and then inhabited the body of the dead diplomat. Robert Lansing, familiar face maybe for some people, played Gary Seven. This was his only Star Trek appearance, but you might remember him from shows like Murder, She Wrote, The Equalizer, where he was Control, and The Man Who Never Was.
Yeah, I recognise his face.
He died in 1994 when he was 66. I think he'd been a heavy smoker and he had cancer. Terry Garr played Roberta Lincoln. This was her only Star Trek role, and she's maybe best known for her Oscar-nominated turn as Sandy in Tootsie.
Yes, I know. I am quite a fan of some of her work, Terry Garr.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
No, actually, again, that's more sci-fi. It wasn't really my thing. There's 3 movies I associate her with. A couple of one biggie, and then one... okay, so Young Frankenstein.
Yep.
But my 2 favourite ones, a small part in a movie with Richard Dreyfuss from the 80s called, most people haven't seen it, it's worth it if you like a gambling movie, it's called Let It Ride.
Okay.
I think it's the first appearance of Robbie Coltrane in America from they moved over. This is first, it's a small role.
Before Nuns in the Run.
Before Nuns in the Run, yeah. It's good, it's also one of the Tilly sisters, and I can't remember which one.
Okay.
But the other movie she's in, and it's in my top 10 of all time, is Martin Scorsese's finest.
Gangs of New York?
Nope. After Hours.
Okay.
Brilliant. I came across it as a kid, late night, as you used to be able to do, flicking through on Channel 4, something like that, and I was totally mesmerised by it.
You don't accidentally watch movies that much anymore.
No, that's what I'm saying. You used to find these things, you'd flick through.
It's the only thing that's on, I'll watch it.
Especially as a teenager, maybe I shouldn't be watching this. What's this? Never know what might happen. After Hours, it's a black comedy, but as a kid I watched it, I remember feeling quite claustrophobic. It's about, it's Griffin Dunn's the main character, and he has an adventure in 80s New York, before the clean-up.
Right.
It's all set over this one night, and there's really weird things and people going on. A lot of big names in it.
Right.
John Hurd, Catherine O'Hara, Rosanna Arquette, Cheech and Chong. Cheech, sorry, him.
Cheech from Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, Dick Miller, Will Patton. Yeah, Bronson Pinochet. It's good. But definitely worth, let's say, I think it's Scorsese's best movie and in my top 10. After Hours. Give it a bash.
Fair enough. Terry Garr's also been in series like MASH, Friends, ER. She's now 73 years old. She does not go to conventions, we'll come back to that.
Oh.
Don Kiefer played launch director Cromwell. His only Star Trek episode, also appeared in shows like Gunsmoke, The Twilight Zone, and 2 episodes of Columbo, making him our Columbo connection. He was the deputy coroner in The Most Crucial Game, and a medical examiner in Death Lends a Hand, so they're both Robert Culp episodes. Whether they were friends, who knows. He died in 2014 when he was 98. Morgan Jones played Colonel Nesvig. Remember him having the conversation with Cromwell at the launch platform again. His only Star Trek role, he was in the 1956 Forbidden Planet movie, and shows like Murder, She Wrote, and 3 Columbos, making him our bonus Columbo connection of the week. Okay. He was Wilson in Columbo Cries Wolf. Not the Wilson.
No.
He was a lab technician in Uneasy Lies the Crown, and a crime lab guy in Columbo Goes to College, all more recent Columbos.
Sure.
Ted Gehring played second policeman in what was his only Star Trek appearance. He also showed up in things like Battlestar Galactica, The A-Team, The Waltons, and one episode of Columbo, making him our bonus Columbo connection.
Oh, a tripler.
He was a security guard in Publish or Perish with Jack Cassidy, and he died in 2000 at the age of 71. Edwin Rochelle played Man with Newspaper in his only Star Trek episode.
We're going for a quadruple here, go on.
He also appeared in shows like Bonanza, The Virginian, Ironside, and one episode of Columbo, making him our bonus Columbo connection. He had an uncredited role as club member in the Bye Bye Sky High IQ murder case.
Absolutely laden with Columbo this week.
In their only Star Trek appearances.
Yeah, that's good trivia.
He died in 1977 when he was 70. There's some incredible Star Trek predicts the future stuff here.
Okay.
So this episode aired on the 29th of March 1968, and you remember Spock's predictions about what would happen. 6 days later, he said it would be an assassination. 6 days later, 4th of April 1968, assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. That's not all. He also said there would be a orbital nuclear warhead platform launched. Now, officially there wasn't, but as you know, towards the end of the episode, Kirk comments that real events were not generally revealed at the time, and Martin Luther King was assassinated on the same day as the unmanned Apollo 6 Saturn V rocket was launched, which suffered a major problem, went off course, and no one really knows what happened with it. The official story is a bit different from this, but who can say what actually happened? Spock's other prediction of a government coup in Asia wasn't fulfilled that week, but 3 months later...
We're starting to push it here.
There was a revolution in Iraq that brought Saddam Hussein to power.
We're not giving us a prediction. 3 months later in a massive area that something might happen politically.
We'll give him 2 out of 3.
We'll give him 1.5.
You got the assassination and the nuclear warhead thing.
Was it a nuclear warhead?
Well, not officially.
Yeah, okay, 1.5.
Well, this is the only episode of the series to take place entirely in the 20th century.
Okay.
Gene Roddenberry, as I'd said, had hoped this would be picked up as a new spin-off series with Gary Sivan, but it was not. Terry Garr, mentioned her. She apparently doesn't like to be reminded that she was in Star Trek. In an interview with Starlog magazine, she said, "Thank God the series wasn't picked up, because otherwise all she would get would be Star Trek questions for the rest of her natural life, and probably her unnatural life." She said, "Do you ever see those people who are Star Trek fans? The same people who go to swap meets."
Oh, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? I wonder when that was, when that interview took place. Maybe she's mellowed.
More recently, I think.
Really?
Certainly in the 90s maybe. But anyway, yeah, she obviously feels she's more important than Star Trek, having been an Oscar-nominated actress. And
it might have changed her tune now, mind you.
Let's hope. In terms of international titles, they're mostly along the same lines. You get, in French, Mission Terre, Mission to Earth. In Portuguese, Viagem à Terra, Voyage to Earth. And in Japanese, Uchu Karano Shisha Misuta Sebun.
That's my favourite.
Mr. Seven, the messenger from space.
Yep.
Next time, after our short break, we'll be back to open up Season 3 with Spock's brain. or as they call it on Swear Trek, Spock's dick.
Okay, I've heard this is a terrible episode, so I'm
You
looking
can
forward to it.
Watch it and substitute dick for brain all the way through, and it has the same amount of sense.
Okay,
So do that when you're watching it.
I will give it a bash.
It's a logical choice.
Until then.
Okay, cheerio.
Bye bye.